Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you today. I wasn't able to record a story last night because I had to take my oldest son to the emergency room. In fact, he's still in the hospital and so am I. But we're going to continue reading out of our book, Escape Down the Raging Rapids by Lee Roddy. Now, if you remember last time, DJ was sitting in front of, what was his name? The boy that did not like, well, I'll find it in a little while. The boy that did not like DJ thinks that DJ saw him burn down that house. And while they were going through the rapids, DJ felt a hard thud right on his back, and it knocked him off the raft and all the way into the churning waters. But he's holding onto his paddle, so let's see what's going to happen on Chapter 7, Those Who Wait. It was early afternoon when at Grandpa Dillon's house. The old man sat alone on the high porch, gently rocking in his red cane bottom chair. Hero was to the right, resting on his haunches, watching the eastern horizon. Stranger was asleep on the old man's left. Grandpa brushed a liver-spotted hand across his thin gray hair, staring at Hero across the distant smoke. Suddenly, Hero leapt up with a sharp, explosive bark. He plunged forward as though he were going to dive headfirst into the ground below. Hero, no! The sharp command stopped the dog short. He stood poised with his right foreleg up, frozen in action, anxiously awaiting and whining. Grandpa shoved himself to his feet with the aid of his Irish shillelagh. He was always a little stiff when he first got up. He used the cane to move quickly as possible to stand over DJ's dog. "What is it, Hero?" Grandpa asked, feeling the short hairs on the back of his neck start to stand up again. It was a kind of fear he could not explain, but he sensed the dog knew something that he didn't. The dog did not seem to hear the old man's questions. Hero slowly lowered his right foreleg to stand on all fours again, but every inch of his body was tense, excited, and ready to go. For a moment, Grandpa wished he had not politely refused Brother Paul's invitation to come into town and stay with his family for a while. The big lay pastor and his daughter had reluctantly left, promising to bring any news of DJ as soon as they had it. Grandpa had been left alone with the dogs to his thoughts. Grandpa couldn't go to his daughter-in-law's home because she was allergic to dogs. And the way DJ's mutt had been acting today, the old man didn't want to leave Hero alone. Besides, in a way he couldn't explain, Grandpa had a hunch he'd learn just as much from Hero as he would from any radio or television newscaster. "What's the matter, Hero?" Grandpa asked, raising his eyes to follow Hero's gaze. Hero didn't seem to hear. Instead, he stood, every muscle alert, muzzle extended but not sniffing the air. He could have been a statue, standing so still. His ears, scarred from being ripped by bears and dogs in many a fight, were cocked as though he were listening to something no human ear could hear. Grandpa glanced at his dog, Stranger, curled up beside the rocker. When the old man got up so fast, Stranger had opened one of his brown eyes. As Grandpa watched, Stranger slowly closed the eye and went back to sleep, his muzzle resting on extended forepaws. Whatever was bothering DJ's dog certainly wasn't bothering Grandpa's. That made goosebumps form on the old man's shoulders and ripple down his arms. The old man bent slowly over Hero and lightly touched him. "I wish I could figure out what you were seeing or hearing." that I can't see." The dog whined, but otherwise he gave no indication of having heard the old man. Instead, Hero stared towards the high country, tensed as though desperately wanting to rush there. Grandpa turned and hobbled with the aid of his cane back to the rocker. He talked aloud to himself. "Whatever it is, I know it means DJ's got troubles. What could be happening to him right now?" Plunging into the mad river, DJ felt the shock of the icy waters as he was sucked deep under the surface. Caught in a hole or reversal, he was tumbled wildly like a rag doll in a washing machine. For a second, he was confused. "Where am I? How'd I get here?" Then he remembered. "I'm overboard because someone pushed me." DJ had automatically taken a deep breath when he sailed out of the raft and over the water. That lungful of air wouldn't last very long. He had to breathe, but which way was up? He tried to see light, indicating the sky, but he only saw millions of white bubbles surging past his open ears. His ears were filled with the continuous sucking sound. The churning caused by the violent mixture of two icy currents below the submerged rock kept DJ suspended between the rocky bottom and the foaming surface. As he whirled around and around, up and down, sideways, forward and backward, DJ could feel the cold seep in through the insulation of his wetsuit and onto his body. "I've got to get out of the water fast." He remembered Brad's instructions in man overboard situation. Take a mental grip of yourself. Tell yourself, "I'm supposed to hold my breath. Stay calm and keep one hand on the paddle." Thinking about the instructions keeps you from panic thoughts like, "I'm going to drown." DJ realized he was still clutching his paddle close against his chest of his life jacket. He forced himself to remember what else Brad had said. "Maybe you'll be flushed out. That's happened to me and always in the years that I've been rafting. But if that doesn't happen, take escape measures." DJ remembered them clearly and began following them. First, he tried swimming to one side. He hoped to feel the main current, which would draw him out of the hole. But he was thrown around so hard that he became confused again. He didn't know which way he was swimming. "Try another direction," DJ told himself. He struck out his right hand in a swimming motion while keeping the paddle against the front of his life jacket with the left. He kicked hard. That didn't work either. The recirculating wave caused by the two currents meeting constantly tossed him around and around. Kick really hard and swim downstream. That was another way to escape a reversal. But which way was downstream? All the water pressure seemed equal. Or swim to one side, Brad had instructed. Maybe the river will surge and flush you out, even if you're held for a while. Something gave him a glancing blow at the back of his crash helmet. DJ remembered a tree trunk rolling heavily in the reversal seconds before he went overboard. The log. It'll crush me if I don't get out of here. He tried to force himself away from the danger. There was a tremendous pressure in all directions from the surging, blasting water. The boy had absolutely no control. He was tumbling wildly about in the enormous power of water and roaring bubbles. Only 20 or 30 seconds had passed, yet DJ began to feel lightheaded. He realized his oxygen was being used up. From lots of summer swimming, he could only hold his breath for about 40 seconds. Just a few more seconds, and he'd have to have air. Desperately, he kicked again and thrust his free hand out in underwater strokes. He felt the log brush against his right foot. DJ automatically jerked his feet back towards his body, then placed the bottom of his tennis shoes against the invisible log. He bent his knees and shoved hard to push himself away from the log. Suddenly, he was free of the hole. His life jacket made him pop to the surface. Frantically, he exhaled and sucked in a great breath of air. A quick glance showed he was being rushed downstream. He remembered to bring his feet up so he was almost in a sitting position. He saw the smoky skies above the canyon wall and the end of rapids. The river curved around a bend. Where are the rafts at? He wondered. DJ had a momentary sense of panic, then realized the rafts couldn't have stopped in the rapids. They would have been carried through around the bend. DJ heaved a huge sigh of relief as the main current swept him around the curve and he saw the rafts. They had eased into a quiet water of an eddy to wait for him. He saw them breaking out for the rescue effort. Connie's sweep boat was the closest. The boy realized, I've got to try reaching it. If I miss, I've still got a chance at the lead boat. DJ twisted his body as if he were riding a bicycle, aiming at the nearest raft. That didn't work. So he changed his sitting position into a full swimming one. He used his free hand to paddle toward the raft. He swam awkwardly, still holding onto the paddle. He saw all the people on both rafts, their mouths moving. They were shouting encouragement to him, DJ realized, but he couldn't hear anything above the river's noise. Alfred's glasses were streaked with spray. He pointed and his mouth moved, but DJ couldn't hear him either. Connie threw a rope with a slightly weighted end, so light it floated. DJ grabbed the rope and was pulled to the raft. Several hands grabbed his life jacket. Gotcha, Odell cried. DJ was dragged across the buoyancy tube and onto the raft, scared but alive. Anxious eyes peered down at him. Voices asked, what happened? DJ glanced quickly from Connie to Renee to Odell and finally to Tobin. The look on Tobin's face made DJ decide not to say he was pushed. It happened so suddenly, he said. Trying to sit up, Connie said, we can talk later. Brad's signaling for us to put in for lunch. When the two rafts were beached at a nearby cove, everyone crowded around DJ. He insisted, I'm fine. Finally satisfied that the boy was all right, everyone moved on to help with lunch preparations, except Alfred. DJ, what happened back there? His best friend asked anxiously. DJ looked around to make sure nobody could overhear, especially Tobin. DJ whispered, I was pushed. What? Who did it? It had to be Tobin. Even though he was too far away to have been heard, Tobin turned around and looked at the boys. DJ remembered the flea bite and the urgent reason for getting downstream to the doctor. I don't want to say anything to delay us. I'll tell you more later. But if he deliberately pushed you, DJ interrupted, he'll claim it was an accident. Alfred sighed, probably so, but watch yourself. Maybe Connie will let you change places with somebody so Tobin's not behind you anymore. Good idea. If I can get her alone, I'll ask. In spite of his problems, DJ found he had worked up a good appetite. He and Alfred headed for the meal which Brad and Connie had prepared. 4 lunch boards, 2 feet by 14 inches, had been set up as banquet tables. They rested on 18-inch high bailing buckets, which served as table legs. Looks good, DJ told Renee, who was just ahead of him in the line. Breads, turkey, ham, and all kinds of cheeses. She reached for lettuce and sliced tomato before selecting the turkey. A regular deli spread, all right. Cookies and fruit are at the far end. You're going to need that energy for this afternoon's run. Tobin Swansea walked by with his plate already loaded. He leaned over to whisper to DJ, you need a girl to tell you everything? DJ started to answer, but Brad spoke up first. We lost a little time back there at the river, folks, So let's cut this lunch short. We still got a long way to go before nightfall. When DJ turned back to answer Tobin, he had moved away. DJ decided it was just as well. He hadn't wanted to antagonize the 16-year-old any more than he already had. DJ eased along the lunch boards behind Renee. Alfred was muttering under his breath about Tobin, so DJ turned around and whispered, "Shh, not now." "But he almost drowned you." "And now he's making nasty cracks," Alfred whispered back. Renee, unaware of the conversation behind her, turned around and smiled at DJ. "Tell me more about being a writer." He shrugged. "There's not much to tell. I'm working as a stringer for the Timbergold Gazette right now." "What's a stringer?" Renee asked, biting into her cookie. "That's a journalism term for a part-time newspaper reporter who covers his own local area for a paper published somewhere else," DJ added. "Sometimes Alfred goes with me and takes pictures for the paper too." Renee sat down in the shade of the small tree growing back in the cove. "I've got a little instant camera, but I take terrible pictures. Could you teach me to take good ones, Alfred?" Alfred didn't hear her. He wasn't listening. He walked off by himself with a faraway look in his eyes. Renee asked, "What's the matter with him?" DJ shrugged. "Oh, he's probably thinking about his family." At Stony Ridge, Alfred's 7-year-old brother and their mother heard someone climbing the steep wooden stairs to their small rented house. Tag jumped up from the pale green upholstered chair. "Maybe that's Alfred," he cried, his tousled head of short dark curls bouncing with his movements. His mother rose from a matching chair and headed for the door. "It's probably your father." She was a pleasant woman with sad brown eyes. She wore her mouse-colored hair, I guess mine might be mouse-colored too, parted down the middle and tied back in a bun. She looked prim and proper, like an old-fashioned school teacher. She wore thick glasses like that of her son. I wonder if I can make myself look like maybe she looks something like this. Maybe. I don't know. Woman and boy fairly flew across the tiny living room where Tag jerked open the door. He was disappointed. "It's only DJ's mother and sister." "Ralph," his mother said disapprovingly. "Oh, Hannah, Pris, thanks for coming. Any news about our boys?" Two Mom slowly shook her head, but she couldn't trust herself to speak. "Come in," Mrs. Milford said, shoving the screen door open. She had a tendency to talk fast when she was excited. "I got Brother Paul's message a while ago, but I can't reach my husband. He's off cutting wood someplace. I don't know where. I've been desperate without a phone or a car." Two Mom wordlessly stepped through the door and opened her arms. The two women embraced, trying not to cry and not knowing what to say. But there was comfort in not being alone, in having somebody who cared to share the fear and the pain of that moment. Pris looked down shyly at Tag. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he answered, standing behind his mother's gray skirt and peering out shyly at the 9-year-old girl. "My brother's not coming home anymore." His mother broke her embrace and swooped down on the little boy. "Oh, Ralph, that's not true. Alfred's going to come home, you'll see." She glanced up, her eyes pleading silently with Two Mom as if to say, "Isn't he?" Two Mom's eyes began to mist with tears. She swallowed hard and said with a conviction that she did not feel, "Of course he is. Alfred's with DJ, and they've had lots of adventures, but they always come home safely. They'll do it this time too." "Promise?" Tag asked, sniffling and rubbing a tear with the back of his hand. The two mothers glanced at each other, anguish and pain making tears jump to their eyes. Silently, they gathered the children together and clutched them tightly. 4 sets of arms encircled each other. Outside, a sudden gust of wind hit the tips of the dark green yew tree and the sugar pine that grew on either side of the steep wooden stairs. The trees first seemed to whisper, echoing the pain of the four people standing just inside the door. The wind increased, and the trees moaned. Oh, that must be so scary for them. Well, tomorrow I'll read the next chapter, chapter 8, and we'll see what happens then. So I want to pray blessings on you and yours in your house and out of your house in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming and keep a story in your heart. All right. Have a good night. It's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Bye-bye.